Okay, so I'm in the textbook. I just decided to go to this exercise to use as an example. But I'm just going to show you a couple of things. So I'm on page 20-15. I'm not really going to go through the exercise. I'm just going to kind of show you some stuff here. But basically you can do this with any part. I'm just using this one as an example. Um, so I'm gonna start with, I have my new design table open here, and I'm just gonna start adding in all my dimensions. So usually you just start on cell B2. That's the name of the dimension is gonna go there, and then your rows are each instance of the dimensions. So we'll just go around I'll start here. I'll go around clockwise and add everything in. Okay, so that's all of my dimensions there. Okay, so now if I want to do anything to this part, say like one thing about it isn't working, but everything else is, you can go, you can just select that whole row and you can drag the corner down and it's just going to copy everything, right? So you're just going to have a second instance. Let's call this second instance here. You're going to have a second instance of the exact same part. So in your configurations, that's the word I was trying to remember earlier. In your configurations, you're going to have your default part, you're going to have first instance, and you're going to have second instance. And as of now, they're all exactly the same. But say you want to keep everything the same, but you just want to make that center hole a little bit bigger. So you could make it 0.6. Oops. And that's the only thing you want to change on here. But you want to have a configuration for both. So this takes like 10 seconds longer probably than just actually changing the dimension itself in the drawing. It's really not a lot more complicated once you figure out kind of how to make a design table. So it's not, it seems like, oh, it's this whole extra step. I have like this whole table for one little change. Why don't I just change the part? But say you need to do that. Say you think you might need to like make other changes in the future. Oops. I just flipped my part backwards and then I closed my design table. But now we can see I have my first instance here and I have my second instance, and watch the hole in the middle should get a little bit bigger. Yeah. So now that I did that, like I can just change it by going to a different configuration. And then I can go back. So here's my design table. I can go back in. I can edit the table. And say I want to like change something else now. So it just makes it a lot easier to track all the changes you've made and to kind of keep everything in one place. And then you can kind of break these out. If you want to print one of them, you can print it. Or you can save a configuration as its own separate part so that you don't have all of this stuff. You just have a part file that just has that part in it, and you don't have to worry about getting it mixed up or clicking on a different configuration by mistake. So does that all kind of make sense? Yeah, it's a Yeah, no, that's a good point. And that's good for me to know because in the future when I mean this is my first time teaching this class, so in the future. Now I know like this is probably something everybody's going to want to know early on. I kind of Yeah, no, that kind of feedback is super helpful to me, so I appreciate it. Yeah, I kind of left it for the end because I figured this is something that, some people, I don't know, when I did this class, I think Jason left this for the very end, and I had kind of a hard time wrapping my head around design tables and the point. But once you get familiar with them, they become like really simple and really useful. Um, and you can do really complicated stuff with them too. Like you can have design tables for your assemblies. I kind of went over that last week, where you can like add or remove different parts with each configuration, or you can make things different ways in different configurations. Like you can have all kinds of crazy stuff going on. Um, so yeah, I'll definitely keep that in mind though, that this is something that's really good to know if people are designing parts. um, so uh, any questions on that so far? The stuff that I just covered. No. All right. So, uh, mhm, yeah. Mhm. I'm not sure. It depends. I mean, you can still like break your part. You can still add impossible dimensions and have it not reconcile um everything with a design table too. But um do you mind if I open up your part and everybody sees it? Okay. All right, let's see if I've still got it somewhere easy to access here. Let's see. Okay, everybody's gonna see my email there while I'm let's see. Did you send me okay, it is a SolidWorks file. Cool. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's pretty nifty. So let's do this real quick. I covered this last week, but I didn't cover it today. So the way you start a new table is you just go to Insert, and then you'll see Tables, and just do a design table. Um, let's do blank. Auto create is going to kind of automatically fill all your dimensions, which you don't necessarily want because it might not do it the way you want it. Yeah. Um, all right. And here I just click OK. Um, let's see. Is it gonna Oh, shoot, I think I need to close my other design table. That's one thing, I had forgotten about this. When you have multiple parts open and they have design tables, like it doesn't like having multiples. So, uh, come on, it won't close. Mildly annoying here. All right. Why do I have... Alright. Um, Jeez. This is what happens when I try to open multiple things at the same time, is everything crashes. Let's just do this real quick. Okay. It looks like SolidWorks ended itself there. Hmm. Yeah, well, I hope you don't literally get an F, but. Mm-hmm. Hmm. Oh my gosh. Hmm. Yeah, that's pretty frustrating. That's kind of hilarious though that your cat did that. Sorry. I know it's probably not that funny, but all right. Yeah. Okay, so one thing, real quick, when you're making a design table, this makes your life a million times easier. So you go view, and then you go to hide show, and you want to show dimension names. So that way, all of your dimensions in your drawing that are named will show up. It looks like you did not name your dimensions, so makes things a little. Okay, so it's just showing for the names. It's showing. Uh, yeah. Um, yeah, I covered it briefly last week. Basically, so now I'm in the sketch. So let's see. Okay, please. I'm gonna have to save this so that I can edit it. Sure. Yeah. All right, let's go back into the sketch. So this is where you name your dimension. Right now it's just D2. Um, let's call this height 1. Save. Let's call this width 1. Yeah. So it will though. These dimensions still, they still have to be defined so that your sketch is fully defined because every sketch If every sketch isn't fully defined, it has a cascading effect. The stuff after it won't be either, because it's all relational to to the previous stuff that you drew, whether or not you cut parts of it away or whatever. You've still got to. Oh. Uh, yeah. Yeah. No, see, I beg to differ a little bit. Um, mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess the I I think it's important to dimension everything. You never know when you're going to need to go back and change something, and if it wasn't fully defined in the first place, then you're going to run into problems, right? So, in principle, it is a good idea to always have everything defined, no matter what. Um, I guess in practice, there may be circumstances where it's not necessary, but I don't want to think, maybe it's not going to be necessary and then find out later on that it was necessary and now it's too late to do it without breaking something. It depends on, it depends, I guess, on your understanding of whatever it is you're designing from the get go. But in general, I think it's a good practice to define everything, even if it isn't necessary. Maybe, I don't know, that's just my opinion. But, alright. Um, oops. Alright. So, this is gonna This is going to take a while because you've got a lot of sketches in here. I don't want to do all of this, um, make everybody sit through this. If you're designing a part, generally speaking, it's a good idea also to name all of your dimensions. So, for example, the one I just had open, the exercise from the book, it's a pretty simple part. Um, it only had a few dimensions, but so it was easy for them to name all the dimensions because it's like there is only one lower base thickness. There is only one upper diameter and so on and so forth, whatever the dimensions were they had in there. But with the parts that you guys design, a lot of the time they're going to be a lot more complicated. So you're going to have to come up with kind of a naming convention and name everything accordingly. So like um if you don't, basically what you're going to end up with is like D1, D2, D3, D4, D5 and so on. And each one is going to be related to the sketch that it's in. So you're going to have like D1 at sketch 1, D1 at sketch 2, and it gets really confusing really quickly. Um so let's just try this. Um Let's go view. We are showing our dimension names. Yes, correct. So let's go back to our design table here. You can, shoot, why aren't they showing up? Let's exit that again. Okay. I'm trying to figure out why I can't actually see all the dimensions. Because you need to be able to see them in order to add them into your design table. Let's try this. Yeah, I know. See, as soon as I go edit table, then everything is suddenly hidden. Okay, here we go. Alright, so we can start adding in our dimensions for this sketch anyway, since it's the first one. So let's say we wanted to change a couple of things here. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, so like you can you can name things how it's going to make sense to you, I guess. And it can get tricky pretty quickly. It can get complicated, but um yeah, I think that's something um I guess theoretically for the purposes of what I'm going over with you today, um things won't be so complicated that like you have to like follow a textbook naming convention. It's as long as you can figure out what each thing is referring to. And for that matter, like um you can just leave it, D1 at sketch 1, D2 at sketch 2. When you're looking at the table, you're going to be like, I don't know what that refers to. So that's why like it helps to have it just named like diameter, and then you're like, okay, that's that diameter that I called out on that sketch for the one circle there. Or whatever. It helps to have a little bit of a reference point. Sometimes you're just, it's going to be confusing, so you're going to have to look at your drawing a lot to figure out what's what. But let's try changing this. I might break something here, so let's see. Um, let's extrude it to 80. Let's start with that. So we close out of it. It's going to create two configurations. So let's see. Our first instance is going to look exactly like yours. We didn't change anything. Second instance should be kind of weird. Yeah, I broke it. So, so what we can do here, maybe not. Let's edit table here. I broke it. Yeah, so those dimensions that I changed here just totally messed up your part. So let's go back to 60. Let's go back to 40. So let's try exiting this. Okay. I don't know. I broke it. So let's go back to the first instance and it. No. Alright. So yeah, it looks like when I changed the first sketch, it kind of broke everything. So let's not save it. Let's close and reopen. Oh shoot, it just crashed on me. So yeah, and the reason I'm breaking it right now is I'm not really paying close attention to what I'm changing. If it's your own part, you're gonna know, like, you know, I need this particular dimension to be a little bit smaller, for instance, and you're only gonna change that. I just changed some random stuff and didn't really know what I was doing because it isn't a part that I designed. So you don't, as long as you're careful, you don't need to necessarily worry about that happening too much. Let's see if this is the right one. As long as you save frequently, you can always close and reopen and, get rid of your most recent changes and go back to where you were. So, alright. So let's do a new table. It won't let me do a design table. Maybe there's still one in here. Yeah. Okay. Alright, so let's go back. Let's actually let's change a couple of features here that maybe won't break it. So, I'm not sure what that, oh, I just clicked out of my design table. So, I'm thinking if we go to like one of the last sketches, then there's nothing really depending on it. So we might be able to change it without breaking everything. So we've got a couple of dimensions here. I'm not sure what this is. Alright. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Oh, nope. Alright. Sometimes when I double click on the dimension, it actually just exits the table. So the way to exit out of your design table, in case anyone didn't see me do this by mistake 6 times, is just click anywhere on the screen outside of it. Okay. So we got a couple of dimensions here. So let's see if we can just make our revolve, our little ring here. Let's see if we can make that a little bit skinnier. So let's make it, let's copy these all down. Call this second instance. let's make this 2. Alright, now let's exit. So our second configuration is going to have all the exact same stuff as the first one. And it's just going to incorporate anything that we made changes to, but it's not going to incorporate, it's only going to change those things. Otherwise, everything's going to stay the same. So hopefully this works. Yep, there we go. So I made that a little bit smaller. We could go back to the first instance and it goes back to normal. And then we could go back to our design table and we could add in dimensions from other sketches and maybe try changing something else. So let's go. There's a lot going on in here. Holy cow. Let's see if we can make this ring at the top a little bit bigger. I'm not sure if it's going to work, but let's see if we can go 8.5. And then, why not? Let's add this too. So we'll make this one 17. Let's see if that works. I don't know if it will. It might break it. So if you ever are doing something and you're like, I hope this works, but it might break it, save before you do it. So if you break it, you can just do like a close and don't save. That's what I do. Yeah, I broke it. And I did not save it first, so here we are. Got a weird mess thing going on here. But anyway, does that kind of give you guys an idea of like what you can do with this and why it's useful? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you can establish it at the very end if you just want to change a couple of things. But yeah, it's gonna work out a lot better if you create your design table like after you do your first sketch, and then as you go, add every single dimension into your design table. Um, and then you're gonna, you might end up with like a really big table, but you're gonna be able to change things from there later on, and you won't be running into the kinds of problems I'm running into now, where like I'm taking this part that was already completely finished, and I'm trying to go back and mess with it, and I just keep breaking it. So. Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, totally. Mhm. Yeah, yeah. So, the more complicated your part is, like, again, you can break your part with a design table just as easily as you can with just dimensioning things manually. Um, so just, save often and so on and so forth. So you don't lose anything. And maybe even save as and then work on it, and that way you've got your old part file still if you break the new one that you saved it as. So, I mean, you probably all have figured out different ways to deal with when you break something. But yeah, sometimes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes it's just you gotta just do what you've gotta do. Um, and I mean, a lot of it too is practice. Like at a certain point, you start being able to see what you need to do to get something defined more easily. But I still run into situations where like I'm like, what the heck is going on here? So it's always, it's always a little tricky, but it's just practice. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So is it saying like you had an open contour somewhere? All right. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, one way to try and handle that is like if it's telling you there's an open contour, it's within the sketch that you're working on. So that narrows it down somewhat. You know which sketch to look at. Um, and then there's ways you can tell. Um, so for example, let me close this. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. That's a tough one. I think I would have to see the specifics to try and figure out an answer, but sometimes um yeah, sometimes those things are really hard to trace down. Uh I don't know. There's a few things you can do to kind of troubleshoot it. Like, unfortunately, it's usually time consuming if you've gotten to that point and you're having those kinds of errors. Um, but one thing you can do is like start deleting features and adding them back in, and there might just be a problem with one of the features you added, and um, by deleting it and redoing it, you might get rid of that problem, you know. And so I mean, but there's different things to do. Like sometimes you just have to experiment with it. That's kind of a tricky one though, because it really depends. Like there could be any number of reasons why you're having that issue. So again, without seeing it firsthand, like it's hard for me to pinpoint. But hmm. Hmm. Weird. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure why it's doing that. So some of that I covered in last week's lecture too. So I encourage everybody to watch last week's when you get a chance. But yeah, I'll go over that again real quick here. I actually was just gonna try and draw something to see if I could figure out what you're talking about, but um, let's just do this. Let's just make a circle. Let's go. I wish. um, all right, let's just extrude this. Oh, you know what? Let's revolve it. That's more fun. Oh, I don't have an axis of revolution. I guess I can't really do that. Let's just extrude it. Um, I don't know. I'm just drawing a thing here. It's very simplistic. All right, let's do this. Okay, so it's a weird cylinder thing with a slot in it. Um, so let's go. So to do your first, you want to go show. Let's do dimension names, and let's insert tables, design table, and it should show all of these. I'm not sure what would cause it to not. It might. Okay, maybe. Yeah, you might. I mean, you might be missing something. I'm not sure. I'd have to look at it. But let's edit our table. Let's go over here and let's go sketch one. And we only have one dimension there, so let's add that. And then let's also add this dimension here. So then we're going to go to cut extrude 2, go to sketch 2, and we're going to add each of these. And then I guess we don't need to change, we didn't give that a dimension, we just said through all. So, alright. So, copy this down one. And then our first dimension, let's make our cylinder a little bit fatter. Let's make it 2. Oops. Let's change the second instance. And let's extrude it. Tell you what, let's use equations here. So we're gonna do equals this guy plus 1. And let's just add 1 all the way across. Alright, and then our diameter is 2. So can this, yeah, I think we're gonna be fine. See now, since I know what all of these dimensions are, and obviously this is much simpler, I can look at it and I can say like, if this diameter, was this diameter or radius? Yeah, this was, if this radius, that's not actually gonna work because the diameter of the whole part is smaller than the radius of this slot. Or smaller than the diameter of the slot, I guess. So let's do plus 0.25. And that should work. We'll exit out of there. We created a couple of configurations. So let's go here. Let's see if our first instance should be fine. Let's see if our second instance breaks. Okay, it broke. So I broke it. So let's change this. Let's go back to the table. Let's just make this 1. Alright, let's try that. Looks like our second instance is still broken. Oh, no, it works now. So there's just something wrong with the way the slot was dimensioned. But anyways, there's a simplistic little thing that I did. And then from here, if you want to like add more stuff, if you wanted to do another sketch, you could totally do that. Let's do like top plane. And then if I wanted to do like, let's do a rectangle. I don't know. And then I would just dimension these, and then I would add those dimensions into my design table. And then like if I were to extrude that or whatever, I would add the extrude distance into my design table as well. So does that kind of give you the idea of how to get started on it? Cool. Totally. Yeah. And so chapter 20 in the book is where they really cover design tables. So if you have, if you kind of need a step-by-step guide to get started on it when you're working on it on your own, that's a helpful place to go. But yeah, it's really just going to be, just play around with it, and try and get used to doing those. and hopefully that's a helpful tool for everyone. Um, so I think I'm gonna wrap up here unless anybody has any other questions. Yeah, of course. All right, cool. Um, Anyone else? Everyone, everyone good? All right. So, I'm gonna wrap up. I'll try and get everything graded. Um, it's due tonight at midnight. I don't like to grade stuff before it's due in case you want to change something at the last minute. So, mhm. Yeah. So you should have two parts and two justifications due at midnight. And then just make sure everything up to this point was due or is due. But yeah, no. So if you can get those in, and try and just check and make sure you aren't missing anything from previous weeks. And the sooner you can get that stuff in, the better. I'll try and get everything graded tomorrow or Wednesday at the latest, and that way you can get started on printing as soon as possible. Um, and yeah, I guess the next step after this, actually, I'll go in Canvas real quick. Let's see. I'll show you next week's assignment. Hang on one second. So, all right. So here's the assignments. So stage assembly is going to be your assembly for your section of your machine. Um, as I mentioned earlier, I'm not going to require you guys to put all your stages together. If you want to, that would be super cool. Feel free, but with COVID concerns and so on and so forth, I don't want to overburden you in terms of getting lab time or generally um, being in a crowded space or whatever. So I'm gonna waive that whole requirement. So all you need to do is turn in your own section of your machine as an assembly. So you're gonna upload that here, and I have that due March. What did I say? I'm gonna do March 19th. So Friday, March 19th by midnight. And that's that. Let's go back. So that's your assembly, and then your final demonstration. Um, I want you to put your machine together as best you can and just do a short YouTube video. Describe your machine, show what it's doing. Um, and this says submit the description and link. So your description is going to be in your link to your video. You don't have to type out a separate thing. So let's just say submit the link to your video here to avoid confusion. If you want to also type in a description, that's fine too. Or if you want to type something to me instead of talking in your video, that's fine too. Um, so does that make sense to everybody? All right. Okay, I'm gonna take that as a maybe yes. So, all right. So it's gonna be a two-part submission. You're gonna do your SolidWorks assembly saved in a pack and go file, and then your final demonstration, which is just going to be a link to your video of your machine. Is that clear as mud? Yeah, cool. Okay. Glad to hear it. So, yeah, obviously feel free to message me if you have questions. I'll try to get back to you as quickly as I can. It's easier to get me on Discord than on Canvas because I really only check that when I'm here in the lab. Um, so send me a message on Discord if you run into any issues or concerns. If you send me an email, maybe also just shoot me a quick Discord message saying like, "Hey, I emailed you." Um, Same goes for a Canvas message. If you need to send me a file or something, that's an easier. You can't really do that over Discord, but just shoot me a message in Discord so I know, because otherwise I won't see it right away. Um, and yeah, keep me posted on how things go, and I'll talk to you all soon, hopefully. I'm gonna stop my stream here.